So after returning from a huge trip to Italy and the Alps as well, I rode a bunch of new really cool coasters, and that includes the Cobra, which was the first large normal coaster we rode on the trip, if you can call this normal.
What the
The Cobra is located at Conny-Land, which is Switzerland's only real theme park, and it's Switzerland's only large roller coaster. Well, apart from the acre-covering mountain coasters, the Cobra, also just known as Cobra, has become a very infamous ride.
Are you crazy?
One, because it looks hella odd. I mean, looking at the scorpion tail here alone, you know what it is. And after this year's extension to it, it's even crazier looking.
Holy Jesus!
It's generally got this reputation of being a very intense and hard-hitting ride, and maybe being just a little too extra. So let's get into what I think about what Switzerland chose to represent them here. I wrote it in July of 2024, and let's get into the technical stuff.
It's Russian.
Cobra is made by Pax Company, a now defunct Russian manufacturer known for creating some wild rides that hardly make sense. Specifically, Cobra is known as a Loop 520 model, and it's the only one of its type.
What a surprise!
I'm not entirely sure where the 520 comes from, but I assume it's the amount of degrees you turn in total when going through the inversions. It's basically a 520 degree helix put vertically. Cobra opened in 2010, and now, considering certain things that are going on in Europe right now, I wouldn't blame you if you assume that this ride doesn't have much time left, since it's made by a Russian company, and let alone a defunct one, meaning there's absolutely no access to spare parts. However, in 2011, all the tracks got replaced by Coaster, who also make Intamin's track. It's low-key and intimate.
You're just like me.
So pretty much most of the ride is not in its original form anyway. It's got 16 rider trains over 8 rows, the 6 middle ones of which are facing each other, which gave our first ride a golden POV opportunity, and these trains are also pretty new, being added in 2020 from Sunkid. The comfort is really fine as well, you sit pretty well and the restraints are good. They're solid, non-hurting vest restraints with sorta bulky lap bars and with a handle to hold on to for dear life, which you're gonna need. It's 137.8 feet tall, and when disregarding all the mountain coasters in Switzerland, cause I don't know how to handle their stats in this, Cobra is currently Switzerland's tallest coaster, although the park's new Family 40 coaster Antares could take that title, but honestly I don't know what the exact height stat of it is, you tell me. It's got a length of 738.2 feet, which is after the new extension, extending it about 10 meters, and it's got a top speed of 52.8 miles an hour, which is most likely the fastest in all of Switzerland, period. The ride time is 29 seconds, and I judged that from the release of the lift, even though the lift very much has an experience of its own. We'll get into that.
Oh my god!
And the ride has 2 inversions, although due to the unique boomerang nature of it, you invert 3 times.
I just found the biggest scorpion.
As mentioned, it looks extremely unique. It very much stands out and is very memorable just by looking at it.
I will remember that. I've got a good memory.
Specifically, the scorpion tail turnaround actually looks like a real scorpion tail after the extension. Before that, it was just flat, and seeing it run by is always a spectacle, although I can't quite call it a pretty ride.
Ugly.
But it is a super cool thing to observe in general, and because it takes up so much space of such a small park, you'll notice it from almost anywhere there.
How are you gonna do that? Through the use of force.
The layout begins with a weird reverse beyond vertical cable lift thing. Yes, it hooks onto this cable car and then it pulls you up at what I'm guessing is maybe 95 or 100 degrees or so.
Oh, it's beyond vertical!
And I can tell you, as soon as you exceed that vertical angle, the hang time becomes absolutely crazy. Now, if you're facing the sky at this point, it will be kind of like when you're at the top of one of these pendulum rides here, where you'll feel some very strange floater hang time thingy going on. But if you're facing the ground, the hang time is straight up terrifying. As in, this is the most terrifying hang time I've ever done.
Holy shit!
And I did this thing inverted with lap bars. At first, I wasn't even sure if I liked it, because it feels much more extreme than how it looks. But trust me, it is one hell of a cool experience. But as soon as it lets you go, you then smash down through the station, getting some nice positive G's at the bottom of the drop. And here you feel a lot of speed. And then you go into the 2 very dragged out camelback airtime hills, both of which give some really nice and sustained floater airtime. No ejector, but it is nice and snappy floater. But it completely changes the game once you hit the vertical loop, because you might want to be wearing your diaper for this part. This vertical loop is the most intense vertical loop I have ever ridden. It's unbelievably forceful and completely destroys any sanity in your head and clearly draws all the blood from your head, as you can see on the boys right here. They're not doing too good. It's throughout the entire loop and going into the Scorpion tail as well that the positive G's are just absolutely crushing. Now, I've heard that after the extension this year, it goes a little bit faster because the lift also got a bit of an extension, so it has more speed here than before. And while I didn't ride it before, I certainly believe that it's faster now. It's just completely cartoonish with how fast it goes through this vertical loop. And then when you reach the inverted part of the Scorpion tail and the forces let up, you get complete whiplash from how it just switches from powerful G-forces to really good hang time, because you are completely upside down at this point. Or, well, enough upside down. So the hang time is great and obviously very sustained. And because of the extension, it also goes further into this element than before, which means that if you sit in the front row, you will start to go up into the curved part of the spike, which means the hang time gets ever so slightly stronger up in the front because you get like a mix of inverted airtime. It's not really that prominent, but you do feel the difference a bit. Generally, this thing is just insane, and feeling the rush of blood to your head after just having all of it dragged the fuck out is unreal. After that, you then go through the entire layout backwards again, starting off with some great positive G's as well. However, this time a lot of speed has been lost, so it's not as forceful in the loops this time, but there still are good G-forces. They're just not insanely forceful this time, but they're still pretty good nonetheless. And then you reach the Camelback airtime hills once again, and here it definitely lets up. On the way back, there's absolutely no airtime on these hills, none whatsoever. And then you finally hit the deafening break. And that's the layout of Cobra.
I don't know.
Regarding the pacing, the ride is basically split into two parts, forwards and backwards, or backwards and forwards. After all, that's up to you. The first half is full-on power. There's no letting up, although the difference in intensity from the airtime hills to the bone-crushing inversions is kind of funny. And then, of course, the backwards after the loops is a lot more relaxed. So you can say the pacing isn't that incredible, but at the same time, it doesn't bother me personally because I kind of like relaxing on the way back after just being completely destroyed. So, we're pacing. You be the judge, I guess.
Hey, Beaver. Check this out.
Now, it might have Intamin-ish track and trains from Sunkid. You know, a nice mix of Liechtenstein and Germany. But, well, Cobra is not a smooth coaster. But it's not terrible. It certainly shakes you around a fair bit, and you really feel it immediately as you just go through the station. The station is one of the roughest parts. Generally, the parts with a lot of G-forces, like the loops as well, are also fairly shaky. It also has a really weird kink going through the loop, where you can feel like a bit of laterals as if it switches direction because of old dumb engineering. But because of the restraints, all the shaking and all the rattling and so on, none of those things are really much of a problem because there's certainly no headbanging or discomfort with the restraints. It does all make it harder to re-ride due to the mixture of forces and shaking, because it can go to your head, but you don't have to worry about getting hurt physically. So I'm just thankful it has no turns.
Thank God.
Conny-Land in general is a strange place with theming. Everything just has a little bit of its own thing going on.
Is there any way that you could do all of them?
And Cobra is certainly no exception. It's got some nice theming on the cars. After all, it is themed to a snake.
Why did it have to be snakes?
And then it's got a sort of Arabian-like station, which isn't super detailed, but definitely does the job. And it does fit the snake theme really well. The only really odd thing about Cobra's theming is the fact that they play hard rock and metal music in the station. And I love that so much.
I'm a goofy goober! What the hell?
Overall, the Cobra is for those who like an extraordinarily intense ride without much regard for comfort. This thing annihilates you. and I personally needed a break after each ride, of which I got 3. One thing's for sure though, it does not disappoint when it comes to the G-Forces, and it's one hell of a ride. The simple amount of stress your body is put under doing this thing is funny as hell. And it's an extremely hard ride to actually give a score, because you either love it or hate it. I guess, to be fair, I didn't either, but it gets a 7 out of 10. For some, this ride could be a 10 out of 10. For others, a 2. And I mean, I liked it, but I definitely didn't love it. It was just a little too much for me to call it a favorite of mine, but you should definitely be the judge of the ride yourself, and I can let you know that both my friends definitely liked it more than I did.
I like that thing.
But man, it definitely blew my shoes off and blew my socks up like balloons. And please, if you've ridden this or maybe just anything from this crazy company, let me know what you think. There's a lot to come, but I'm also really slow with uploads these days, so I apologize for that in advance. But please follow if you want more dumb stuff like this. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Ah!